Oh, the drama. Leave it to HannibalBarca13 to start up more drama. Let's see. So, the first time I unsubscribed from Divinity was because of her backing up this idiot. And then, now she does it again, so I unsubscribe again. Alright, she wants to argue against me through this guy because of a comment I left on her video, of which she didn't respond to. Right, she didn't respond to it. All right, what did I say? I said, to speak of the people in the Western Hemisphere pre-1495 as one conglomerate as to the condition and state of women as a group is painting a rather simple and almost racist picture. Now, and then I go on to say, where are you getting this from? The Mexica Movement. Because it sounds familiar. And this is not just the first time I've heard her talk, is that her people, her indigenous peoples of the Western nations, right? She talks as she groups them all as to one big group and then pits it against the white man. Very simplistic picture. Then the white man came, right? So that I've heard this expressed in two areas, from romantic primitivists like HannibalBarca13 and from racists like the Mexica Movement. So, and I've heard her express this stuff throughout her videos here and there. So that's where that comment is coming from. If she doesn't want to answer to that, fine. Whatever. I mean, look, we're all, here, I'll give you all a little leeway, okay? We're all susceptible to it. We all do it. We all buy into it. We can even support it because it's easy for us as human beings to think in simple terms like that. It's the same thing with slavery. Slavery was obviously a black issue, right? Yeah. Well, slavery predates rewritten history, folks. And plenty of white people were affected by slavery as well. Once you take in the entire history and look in the entire global picture of slavery. Right? And then you think about slavery in the United States, very few white people, relative to the population size, actually own slaves. Yeah. And you start actually reading history, your little simple picture of slavery starts to get really fucked up. Yeah, it does. And as soon as slavery came here, it was fought against as well by white people. As soon as it came here to America, the black slaves that started to come here were fought against by white people. And most of the fighting through history against slavery came from Republicans. And the KKK was ran by Democrats. Yeah, the kind of shit that you learn fucks your little story up, doesn't it? Right? And black people also own black slaves. But people who want to keep a simple picture, as this group against that group, don't like those kinds of facts because it fucks up their storyline. Alright, so what? I got nothing to say to this Hannibal Barca. I mean, the guy makes a video about a comment or about a link I put into a video. He makes like a 10-minute video or some shit about a link I put into a video. To Derek Freeman. Oh my. Well, why not talk about here, let's go look at it. Okay, here's the video. Let's go down to the link that he's so upset about that he's got to make a video about. Yes, the case of Derek Freeman. And I put this in after I saw his video. Said, someone is upset I put this link here. Whatever will I do? How about we compare these quotes to Pinker's? Yeah. Now, you sit here and you harp on me about Freeman. Well, why don't you read Pinker? Because he's saying the same shit pretty much that fucking Freeman is saying about your beloved anthropology and the state that it was in. Oh, yeah, you can't deny heritability. Of course not. Black people have black kids. White people have white kids. Of course you can't deny heritability in that sense. But God help you if you talk about behavior. Human behavior. Right? Yeah. Oh, and this bullshit with the MRAs, for Christ's sake. One of the first videos I ever made to a radical feminist, Nuclear Knight, was actually in defense of her. I'm going to say this again. I've said this before in the past. Was in defense of her. And I called the people out that were talking shit about her, and I said, you know what? If you got a problem with her, why don't you actually go to her videos, hear what she's saying, and respond to that? But people wouldn't do it. and it pissed me off. The same thing is happening with HannibalBarca13. Has this man ever responded to a single fucking video and responded to what actually any MRA is actually saying in that video? Taken any position that they're talking about in a video and actually responded to it in any way? No, he hasn't. He mentioned one video once that wasn't even, there was no words in it or anything. It wasn't even, no arguments made. It was ridiculous. So it's clear that he wants to argue against something and he doesn't even look into it. What kind of person does that, right? Now I can almost forgive someone like Divinity or HannibalBarca13 not doing that because of, time, resources, and they're just everyday people, right? But I mean, come on. The Southern Poverty Law Center brings in $30 million a year, has $250 million in assets, and this is what we get from them? This is even worse than this is actually a little better than what HannibalBarca does. But I mean, look at the claim. Men's rights activists often insist that men are victimized by sex crimes and abuse just as much as women, if not more. Well, where? And that in another effort to show that men are discriminated against, many men's rights activists assert that women attack men just as much as men attack women, if not more. And then they talk about how with the false rape accusations and all that shit. I don't want to show the whole thing. They'll probably DMCA my ass or some shit for showing their stupid website. But you would think it's somebody with a huge institution like that, all that fucking money come in. They may offer you something a little bit better, but they don't do much better than HannibalBarca13, and that's really speaks a lot to that institution, I say. So I challenge Hannibal, Divinity, and the SPLC. Go to ManWomanMyth. All right, here, I'll leave you a link to it. And watch his videos specifically on domestic violence. And what are some of the main themes you're going to hear come out of there? Well, I'll tell you. One of the main themes is how domestic violence has been used, right? And I agree with this. I came to this conclusion. I came to these conclusions before. This is just so fucked up. I came to so much of my conclusions about feminism and shit like that before I even heard about fucking MRA. I've had to repeat this again and again. It's just so ridiculous. All right, anyways, but I mean, let's go look back here real quick at what they. Oh shit, I'm gonna show the whole thing again. I mean, look at what they're gonna tell us about the reality about domestic violence, right? I mean, this is not the reality. This is a very limited view, right? A very narrow view of the reality. Right? You want to point out the stats that paint your picture for you. I got stats too. Brother. You can go look them up. Yeah, kind of hard to swallow some of those stats. Right. Yeah, what about the stat of of 40% of convicted rape, or out of the convicted rapists, 40% were molested as children, and half of those were molested by their mothers. Something you're not going to hear from the feminist side when it comes to rape statistics and finding out the realities about rape. You want to talk about conspiracy? Well, let's talk about conspiracy. Go read this paper here. Process is explaining the concealment and distortion of evidence on gender symmetry and partner violence. Go read about that. Of course, it's probably going to go the way with HannibalBarca like it always does. Anybody who speaks out against something he's so entrenched in his ideology with, they're going to be kooks, right? There's going to be something wrong. Everyone is just a kook, or like with Sophia Roon, everyone is just having their ego hurt, right? There's no reality here, folks, right? It's all just their way. So one of the biggest themes that come out when I hear MRAs talking about domestic violence is how it's constantly portrayed as just a woman's issue. I mean, it didn't used to be called domestic violence. It wasn't always called that, folks. And there are people that's still not happy with that gender neutral language. They want it to be, Yeah, there you go. They want it to be spoken of in terms of wife abuse and wife battery. That's how they want to present it. And that's how it's presented in the news, in the media, in newspapers, in movies, in everywhere, in posters. I mean, domestic violence is men beating women. That's it. And we're sick of it. I say we there because, look, when I think of MRAs, I don't think of it as rights. See, that's how they want to present themselves. They're against me on the masculinism. I don't like to use masculinism because, well, it doesn't, that's like saying feminism. Feminism. We don't say that. We say feminism. Okay, so we say masculism. Right? Because they're not concerned always so much with rights, right? Like, we're going to speak of rights. And neither are feminists, by the way. Feminists talk about all kinds of shit in regards to the female as a group, right? That don't have to do with rights. So no, there doesn't have to be some standard on men's rights activists or men's rights movement to be about rights all the time. No. It just has to concern men, right? It has to concern males. It has to concern the male people, the male as a group. Regardless, I'm going off the rail here, but it's ridiculous. And this book is, I haven't read the whole thing here, of course, but seems to be good that they're at least, they talking about, yes, of course, we're going to talk about the nature of man. Okay, no, so, what was I on? Okay, yeah, the themes, yeah. So let's, one of the themes that we as masculists talk about, right? You're going to talk about domestic violence, then talk about it as it is, wholly. Don't sit there and always paint a simplistic picture to vilify men as a group, because that's how it's been used. Now, some people will say, well, why is it used that way? Well, there's two themes that I hear about that coming out of the men's rights movement. One is to generate revenue for all these NGOs, and that ain't no fucking joke, man. We're talking, this is a billion-dollar industry a year, and all the different aspects of how domestic violence is, well, used to gain not just money for NGOs, but power for prosecutors, for judges, for lawyers. They love it. It's a great topic. It really gets people behind them, right? And it's used politically to gain clout amongst the peoples, right? Where I'm going to fight for the women because that's just, we love that white knighting thing, man. I'm fighting for the women. So I think that there's some validity to all that, to that position. That's torturing we're torturing our kid there. We're talking about domestic violence, so I thought it'd be fitting to do that. Yeah, so that, anyways, I'm going on too long here. Regardless, so that's some of the shit I hear coming out of the MRM, the men's rights movement, if you want to label it that, whatever. That's what I hear. Now, are there going to be people that misrepresent stuff and put out bad studies and say stupid shit? Yeah, that shit's going to happen. What, the MRAs are gods, but they're not susceptible to lying or manipulating of data or things of that nature? Some of them here or there, or just subject to myths just as much as anybody else, of course. And I see the men's rights movement as still fledgling and still trying to find itself. It certainly is nowhere near as powerful as the feminist lobby. Please. So, give it time. But yeah, go ahead. If you got something good to call them out on that shit. I ain't against that shit. But I mean, this is fucking ridiculous. $30 million a year, and this is what you got? Please. And fucking Hannibal, even worse. He just goes and repeats what somebody else said about that group. That's all he does. That's his shtick. Wow, that's great research, Hannibal. Yeah, anyway. I think I'll be done with this silly drama video. Alright, so Lots to talk about. I can go on and on here for an hour, and we're just jumping all over the place. Yeah, so be it. Peace out, my brothers, sisters, and everyone in between.